Captain Elias Kane adjusted his uniform and surveyed the glowing bridge displays of the solstice. Deep space exploration missions were rarely predictable, and he liked to keep a steady hand on the wheel. The crew moved efficiently through their routines, but the quiet hum of machinery and muted voices betrayed an air of vigilance. They had entered uncharted territory on the outskirts of the Rigel sector, a place where even humanity's most comprehensive star maps trailed off into nothingness. "Sir, we're picking up an unknown signal," Lieutenant Jasper Quinn reported from the comm station. Kane turned his chair to face him, crossing his arms. "Origin. It's faint," Quinn said, leaning closer to his console. "Seems to be emanating from that system ahead, near that large gas giant." He tapped a few keys, and the main view screen magnified the image of the star system. A small, sleek vessel drifted in orbit, shimmering with alien technology. "Captain," said Navigation Officer Alex Dorn, glancing up from his station, "we're close enough to initiate first contact. Standard protocols." Kane nodded. "Prepare a greeting signal. Keep it simple, friendly. We're here to make allies, not enemies." As the signal was transmitted, the bridge fell silent. A few moments later, the unknown ship responded. First, it was just static. Then a sharp, clear voice cut through, musical and measured, though tinged with caution. "This is Ilari of the Turinii delegation," the voice said. "Your presence in this sector was not anticipated. State your intentions." Kane exchanged a glance with Quinn. "Open a channel," he said. When Quinn nodded, Kane spoke. "This is Captain Elias Kane of the Solstice, representing the United Terran Federation. We're an exploration vessel on a peaceful mission. We mean you no harm." There was a pause, then a different voice came through. Deeper, heavier, likely male. "If your intentions are peaceful, then your strength will not be tested today. But you must explain why humans have come so far from their known territories." Kane's jaw tightened. He didn't like the implication. "We're simply exploring the galaxy," he replied. "We've never encountered your people before. We'd like to learn more about you, and perhaps share knowledge in return." The line went silent again, and Kane exchanged uneasy glances with Dorn and Quinn. Finally, Ilari's voice returned. "Your presence here is unexpected, Captain Kane, but perhaps an exchange could be arranged." Kane motioned for Dorn to set a course toward the Turinii vessel. "We'll come in closer. Let's keep communications open and show them we're willing to engage on their terms." As the solstice approached, the alien vessel became clearer. Its hull shimmered with a strange, organic pattern that shifted colors as if alive. A small docking port extended outward, and Ilari's voice instructed them to connect. Kane gestured to his first officer, Lieutenant Commander Evan Reddick. "Reddick, you're with me. We'll take the small diplomatic shuttle over. Dorn, you have the bridge until I return." Reddick gave a quick nod. "Understood, Captain." Within minutes, Kane and Reddick were seated in the shuttle, its engines humming softly as they crossed the short distance. The closer they got, the more details of the Turinii ship came into focus. The patterns on its surface seemed to breathe, the colors shifting from cool blues to warm ambers. Kane found himself wondering what kind of minds had crafted such a vessel, what culture had guided their designs. When they docked, the airlock opened with a hiss, and they stepped into a chamber bathed in soft, pale light. Two Turinii figures stood waiting. One was clearly Ilari, a tall, graceful alien with shimmering skin that glimmered like liquid metal. Beside her stood a broader, more imposing Turinii male, his expression unreadable. "Captain Kane," Ilari said, her voice calm but firm. "And who is this with you?" "Lieutenant Commander Evan Reddick, my second in command," Kane replied. Reddick nodded in greeting, his dark eyes scanning the room with practiced calm. The larger Turinii spoke, his voice deep and measured. "I am Vectal, Ilari's security advisor. It is unusual to see humans venture so far from their territory." "We're explorers," Kane said evenly. "We seek knowledge and understanding. We've never met your kind before. This is an opportunity for both of us." Ilari exchanged a glance with Vectal, who gave a small nod. "Very well," she said. "Let us begin with introductions. You've come far, Captain. Your journey suggests curiosity, or perhaps something more." "Curiosity," Kane said. "Humanity has always sought to push boundaries. We want to know what lies beyond the edge of our maps. We mean no harm." "Harm is not always intentional," Vectal remarked. "But words are merely words. It is your actions that will define you." Reddick leaned closer to Kane, speaking softly. "They're testing us, trying to see if we're as bold or reckless as the stories say." Kane nodded subtly, then turned back to Ilari. "We would like to learn more about your people, and perhaps you can learn more about us." Ilari's shimmering skin seemed to ripple as she regarded them. "A cautious offer," she said, "but a start. Come, let us speak in more detail. This encounter may yet prove enlightening." Chapter 2: Common Ground. The Turini ship's interior was unlike anything Captain Kane or Lieutenant Commander Reddick had seen before. The walls seemed to shimmer and pulse as if the ship itself were alive. Strange glyphs ran along the corridors, glowing faintly in their wake. Kane couldn't help but glance at his first officer, who wore a skeptical expression. "This ship gives me the creeps," Reddick muttered under his breath. "Focus," Kane said. "Let's not make a bad first impression." They followed Ilari and Vectal into a spacious chamber that served as a meeting room. A round table of some transparent, glass-like material dominated the center. Along the walls, delicate sculptures rotated slowly in midair, each casting flickering light patterns on the floor. Kane found himself momentarily mesmerized by the display, but Ilari's voice snapped him back. "Please, have a seat," she said, gesturing to two curved chairs that emerged seamlessly from the floor. As Kane and Reddick sat, Ilari took her place across from them, while Vectal remained standing, his watchful gaze fixed on the two humans. "You said you wished to learn more about our people," Ilari began, her voice steady. "Tell me, why venture so far into the unknown? Surely your kind could survive without coming here." "We're explorers," Kane replied. "That's who we are. If we had stayed in our original solar system, we'd never have discovered other worlds, other civilizations. And frankly, it's not just about survival. It's about understanding. Every encounter like this helps us grow." Reddick nodded. "It's not just the new resources or technology. It's the new perspectives. Meeting you, seeing how you live. It's what makes this job worthwhile." Ilari regarded them silently for a moment, then spoke. "Your reasoning is compelling. The Turini have spent many generations isolated. While we possess great knowledge of our surroundings, we have never sought to reach beyond them." Vectal's voice rumbled. "There is wisdom in caution. Expansion often leads to conflict." "We understand that," Kane said quickly. "But conflict isn't inevitable. We're proof that contact can be peaceful." "Peaceful," Vectal echoed. "Your reputation says otherwise." "Reputations rarely tell the whole story," Kane replied. "You've met us now, Vectal. Do we seem like conquerors?" The Turini male's eyes narrowed slightly, but he said nothing. Ilari inclined her head. "It is true. You have shown no aggression. That alone sets you apart from the tales. Those tales don't account for the efforts we've made to change," Reddick added. "Humanity isn't perfect, but we're learning. Every step out here, every new encounter, teaches us something new." Ilari's gaze softened. "You speak of growth, of change. Perhaps that is what makes you unique, your willingness to adapt. But tell me, Captain Kane, Lieutenant Commander Reddick, what is it that you hope to find among the stars?" Kane leaned forward slightly, his hands clasped on the table. "Connections, understanding. Every time we meet a new species, we add to the tapestry of who we are. We see our flaws more clearly, but we also see our potential. We're not out here to conquer. We're out here to learn." Ilari tilted her head. "And if you find nothing but fear and hostility? What then?" Reddick gave a wry smile. "Then we keep trying. It's not the first time we've been met with suspicion. We'll do what we've always done. Show that we're worth trusting." Vectel crossed his arms. And how do you propose to demonstrate that trustworthiness? By working together, Kane said simply. We're not here to take or demand. We're here to share. We bring knowledge and resources, and we hope to gain the same from you. It's a mutual exchange. Iluari seemed to consider his words carefully. Finally, she stood, her movements fluid and deliberate. Then let us test this idea of exchange. You speak of connections and understanding. Perhaps we should see if our two peoples can work toward a shared goal. What do you have in mind? Reddick asked, rising to his feet alongside Kane. The artifact, she replied, her gaze steady. It has been dormant for centuries. Perhaps it is time we uncovered its secrets together. Vectel's face darkened slightly, but he said nothing. Kane saw an opportunity and seized it. We'd be honored to work alongside you. If this artifact is as ancient and mysterious as you say, then solving it together would be a great start to our cooperation. Iluari's expression was unreadable, but there was a flicker of something. Perhaps curiosity, perhaps hope in her eyes. Then we shall begin preparations. Captain Kane, Lieutenant Commander Reddick, I trust you will bring the best of your people to this effort. You have our word, Kane said. As they departed the chamber, Reddick leaned closer to Kane, his voice low. What do you think, Captain? Are we ready for this? Kane glanced at his first officer and then back at the glowing walls of the Tyrrheni ship. We're going to have to be. If we can find common ground here, it'll mean something. Not just for us, but for them too. Reddick nodded thoughtfully. Guess we better start showing them what we're made of, beyond the stories they've heard. Kane smiled faintly. Exactly. Chapter 3, A Shared Threat. The atmosphere on the bridge of the solstice was tense, and the low hum of the ship's systems only amplified the silence. Captain Kane paced slowly, his hands clasped behind his back, while Lieutenant Commander Reddick stood by the central console, frowning at the swirling data on the screen. It's not just random interference, Reddick said finally. This signal is deliberate. Someone, or something, sent it. Have we identified the source yet? Kane asked, pausing to glance at the display. Not yet, Quinn replied from the comms station. But it's not local. The frequency is strange. Doesn't match any known patterns. Could it be another Tyrrheni vessel? Reddick suggested, though he sounded doubtful. A hidden one that wasn't supposed to contact us? No, came a voice from the far side of the bridge. Iluari, the Tyrrheni diplomat, stepped forward, her posture calm but her expression serious. Beside her stood Vectel, who looked as if he were weighing every word they said. Our ships don't use such frequencies. Whatever it is, it's not one of ours. Kane regarded her carefully. Then we're looking at a third party. Iluari nodded, her luminous skin catching the light. And not a friendly one, it seems. If they wanted us to understand the message, they would have used a language or pattern we recognize. This feels more like a warning. A warning about what? Reddick asked, gesturing to the screen. It's just noise. Noise with intent, Iluari countered. There's a pattern beneath it. A code, perhaps. We've been running decryption protocols since the signal came in, Quinn said. If there's a code, we'll find it. But I'd be lying if I said it's going to be quick. This is alien. Even more alien than the Tyrrheni tech we've seen. Reddick raised an eyebrow at Iluari. Any chance your people have seen something like this before? Even a rumor? Iluari glanced at Vectel, who hesitated before shaking his head. Not in living memory, she said. But our archives are vast. There may be something buried in our history that could shed light on this. I'll request access to the records. Please do, Kane said. In the meantime, we'll keep trying on our end. Vectel spoke up, his voice a low rumble. If this signal is a threat, we must treat it as such. Cooperation will be our best defense. Agreed, Kane said. But we can't panic. We need answers first. Reddick crossed his arms. If the Tyrrheni archives don't have anything useful, what then? Then we dig deeper, Kane said simply. But let's not jump to conclusions. This could be nothing more than a leftover automated beacon from a long-dead civilization. Ilari studied him. You don't believe that? I don't, Kane admitted. But I have to consider all possibilities. Until we know more, I won't assume hostility. There was a long pause and then Ilari nodded. Very well. I'll contact my ship and begin searching our archives immediately. Vectal will remain here to coordinate efforts. Thank you, Kane said. Lieutenant Commander, stay on top of the decryption efforts. Quinn, notify me the moment we have any progress. Reddick gave a sharp nod. Understood. As Ilari and Vectal left the bridge, Kane remained staring at the screen, watching the incomprehensible signal as it danced across the monitor. Reddick stepped up beside him. You think it's really a threat? Reddick asked. I don't know, Kane replied. But we need to be ready for anything. For now, let's focus on cracking that code. Reddick clapped a hand on Kane's shoulder. We'll get it done. We always do. Kane managed a small smile. Let's hope so, Reddick. Let's hope so. Chapter 4. The Unknown Voice. The derelict artifact loomed before them like a forgotten giant, its surface a jumble of sharp angles and worn-down edges. Though the artifact drifted in the void of space, it gave off a faint glow that pulsed with an irregular rhythm, almost as if it were breathing. The closer the Solstice and the Tyrrhenii ship approached, the clearer it became that this was no simple relic. It was a machine, one whose purpose had long since been lost to time. Captain Kane watched the viewscreen carefully, his arms folded. Any idea what we're looking at? He asked the bridge crew. Quinn, still hunched over his console, shook his head. No known match in any database. Even the energy readings are all over the place. It's ancient, sir. Older than any known civilization. Reddick leaned closer to Kane. And we're sure this thing isn't active? I don't want us walking into another mess. We won't know for sure until we get a closer look, Kane said, glancing toward Ilari. She stood beside Vectal near the back of the bridge, her gaze fixed on the artifact. Even she seemed unsure for once. Captain Kane, Ilari said, breaking the silence. Our scans also indicate that this artifact is of unknown origin, but the signal we received earlier, it came from this structure. Which means someone or something activated it recently, Reddick added. Might not be as dormant as we'd like. Then we proceed with caution, Kane said. Reddick, prep a boarding team. Ilari, I'd like your people to join us. 2 teams, 1 objective. Figure out what this thing is. Ilari hesitated, then nodded. Agreed. Vectal will lead the Tyrrhenii contingent. I will accompany you personally. Not exactly standard protocol, Reddick muttered under his breath. Protocol's out the airlock, Commander, Kane replied. We're in uncharted waters. Within an hour, 2 shuttles departed the ships and docked at the artifact's exterior. The boarding party was a mix of humans and Tyrrhenii, an uneasy alliance still testing its strength. Kane and Ilari led the way, with Reddick close behind, flanked by 2 armed Marines. Vectal and his soldiers kept to the opposite side of the corridor, their movements smooth and deliberate. The interior of the artifact was a maze of twisted corridors, each one filled with what looked like ancient consoles, crumbling panels, and strange, pulsing conduits. Lights flickered inconsistently, casting eerie shadows that made every step feel heavier. Atmosphere is thin, but breathable, Reddick said, checking his handheld scanner. Whoever built this, they weren't much bigger than us. Or they weren't biological, Ilari pointed out, her voice soft but steady. This architecture doesn't resemble anything from known organic civilizations. It may have been constructed by machines. Machines don't leave this kind of wear and tear, Kane said, running a hand along a pitted wall. This place has seen something, time, battles, who knows? The question is what triggered it now. Ahead, the corridor opened into a massive chamber. At the center was a towering column of light, its surface shifting between colors and shapes. The signal's rhythm grew louder here, almost like a heartbeat. The team gathered cautiously at the edge of the room, their weapons lowered but ready. Anything on the readings, Quinn? Kane asked over comms. Still no clear pattern, Captain, came Quinn's voice through the helmet radio. But the energy levels just spiked. I'd be careful. Kane glanced at Ilari, who nodded. Together, they stepped closer to the column. What do you make of it? He asked. Ilari tilted her head, examining the shifting shapes within the light. It's a language of some kind, a code that we can't yet comprehend. Is it trying to communicate? Reddick asked. It's possible, Ilari replied. Or it could be an automated defense mechanism. We need to proceed carefully. Vectal, any thoughts? Kane asked, turning toward the imposing Turini soldier. It could be a warning or a gatekeeper, Vectal said, his voice low. Either way, we need to determine its intent before we proceed further. Kane nodded, then tapped his comm. Quinn, keep analyzing that signal. We'll see if we can figure out the source on our end. As the team spread out cautiously to examine the chamber, Kane and Ilari found themselves standing side by side, their eyes fixed on the column. Whatever this is, Kane said quietly, it's more than just an ancient relic. Someone wanted it found, or wanted it left alone. Ilari glanced at him, her silver eyes reflective. And now it's up to us to decide what to do with it. Chapter 5, The Mind's Edge. The artifact's central chamber pulsed with a strange, rhythmic energy, casting shifting light across the floor and walls. Captain Kane and Lieutenant Commander Reddick stood near the alien console at the base of the towering column of light. Ilari and Vectal flanked them, their focus fixed on the rapidly changing symbols projected by the artifact. Despite their combined efforts, the meaning behind the signals remained a mystery. This thing's throwing data at us faster than we can process it, Reddick muttered, scanning the symbols with a handheld device. It's like a